Thanks for having me.
So is the threat of military action just part of President Trump's unpredictability? What do you see here?
Well, I think the president's giving himself plenty of opportunity to let the negotiations play out, but also these leaks and the different things that are going out into the atmosphere. This is all part of getting into the head of the Ayatollah and trying to influence their decision making. They don't know if there's going to be a limited strike, a regime change strike. Having this panoply of military force in the region, sufficient force that it could be a surgical strike or it could be a strike that's overwhelming and regime destroying, that really makes it incredibly difficult for the Ayatollahs to know which direction the president's going. And it gives him a tremendous amount of leverage as he's negotiating. And that's exactly where we want to be.
Alex, what kind of deal, short of regime change, would you take where you would feel like, I believe what these guys are saying and they're going to do it?
That's a really high bar, but it would have to be incredibly intrusive nuclear inspections, incredibly intrusive inspections of their missile program, short, medium, and long range. And it would have to be some sort of verifiable dismantling of their proxies. So think Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas. Obviously that's a high bar, but I'm not sure that anything else is going to solve the fundamental security challenges that we have.
How would this deal look differently than the Obama deal that we saw two regimes ago?
Well, the Obama deal was predicated, obviously, on basically empowering Iran to a certain degree to be a regional power. There was a decision, I think, by the Obama team that Iran could actually be turned into some sort of positive force in the Middle East if only we got the nuclear program off the table. That was obviously a fallacy, and the Iranians took that and ran with it and destabilized the entire region. I think any deal that the president would want to put on the table would have to be a clear and verifiable change to Iran's behavior, and would have to be a way for the United States to have the surety that we're not leaving the region in chaos. So frankly, we can do what we all know and what the president has said for 10 years he wants to do, which is have a much lighter American footprint in the region. That's the ultimate goal here. But we have to do it smartly, and we have to do it without leaving the region worse off.
So if this leads to military conflict, how concerned are you about Iran's response? They clearly have some ballistic missile capability, which they could use to target our bases or allied bases. The Strait of Hormuz, a quarter of the world's oil, LNG runs through the Strait of Hormuz. There's a lot of mess they could make, and some of it very serious. Is that a big concern of yours?
You know, I've watched for 7 or 8 years now as the intelligence community and the Washington establishment has always said that Iran is 10 feet tall. And we've seen, whether it was Operation Midnight Hammer, whether it was the Israelis, whether it was the Israelis taking out their proxies, that Iran is a much weaker and much more troubled regime internally than maybe the intelligence community has estimated. That's not to say we should take them lightly or we should overextend ourselves, but I think the United States has the overwhelming, what the military would call the overmatch, to do what we need to do tactically and operationally. We obviously have to take into account that these actors have agency, they have the ability to fight back. But I don't think that we should worry too much about Iran's ability to change our calculus.
We only have a few seconds. Are you worried about who would take the place of the Ayatollah were there regime change?
Well, I do worry about regime change, and I think that regime change should be the absolute last resort. And the president has spent a decade and has been the most eloquent voice in American politics for avoiding regime change in the Middle East. Regime change is almost never in the American interest. And as you see in Venezuela, the president has been very pragmatic in how he's operated. It's not about determining what the future of Venezuela looks like. It's about making sure that the regime post-Maduro serves American interests. So picking and choosing who should be running these countries, that's not what we should be focused on. We need to focus on core U.S. security interests, act surgically if we have to, and then get out.
Alex Gray, terrific conversation. We appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining.